Alrighty, welcome everyone to servers and APIs and some basic JavaScript programming. So thank you to Stephen Gong for inviting me to do this for Curious, basically Curious nonprofit organization to help teach young Quebec students and basically anyone who wants to learn how to code a little more and build technologies. It's a nonprofit that teaches them through workshops to basically build stuff. I hope you guys can all see my screen properly. If you can't, just send a message in the workshop channel or unmute yourselves and let me know. And if you guys can't hear me properly too. Also, let's make this like super interactive. You guys can not speak if you don't want to, but the second you have a question, just unmute yourself, cut me off and ask your question away. We're like 10 people, so like it really doesn't matter. Just kind of cut me off and ask me if you have any questions. And if I'm going too fast, let me know. I'll re-explain something or something like that. So just to give you guys a little outline of what we're going to do, I'll talk a little bit about myself. Then we're going to talk about what the internet actually is fundamentally. What are servers? What are clients? What are APIs? Basically, a couple of jargon that developers in general need to know if they want to develop something for the world. Then we're going to get into some JavaScript basics and have a little API example using JavaScript on Node.js. So let's start with what is the internet? I don't know what, my PowerPoint's very slow. There you go. So what is the internet? I'm sure you guys have all seen this picture with a bunch of computers interconnected, and that's basically what it is. So the internet is a bunch of computers all around the world connected through a web, basically. The internet is just the actual web of all these computers connected together. So when I say computers, it includes two things. It includes servers and clients. Let's get into servers. So a lot of the internet, as you guys may know, is web apps or applications or phone applications, web applications, websites, stuff like that. A lot of the data that is held on the internet is not all on your own computer. Most of it actually is not on your own computer. A lot of it is on a computer somewhere hosted by, say, Google, Amazon, Microsoft. And those computers are special computers that usually don't have interfaces, so they don't have this cute kind of Windows menu that you see in front of yourselves and stuff like that. They usually just have command line interfaces where you could just interface or rather communicate with the computer through command lines and commands. And basically those computers, all they are, they're backends. So server is a synonym of back. So it's like the backend or backbone of the internet. And what they have on there is code that is reactive. So what I mean by reactive code is code that's just there and it's just listening from the outside world. So this picture that you see of a server room, it's very typical that you see in movies, but this is actually what it looks like. And it's these are like thousands and thousands of computers stacked one on top of the other, or very powerful computers that are doing multiple things at once. And what they do is they wait there and they listen for the outside world to be asking them a question or sending them an information or something like that. So then the counterpart to a server is a client. So what's a client? A client is also a synonym of a browser and stuff like that. And so a client is actually any piece of code that is running on a personal device or a device that is facing the user. So it could be your mobile phone, it could be your laptop, it could be your desktop, it could be a TV even that's connected to the internet. All of these are clients that don't actually have any information within themselves. Well, obviously they have a little bit of information, but a lot of what they're going to do is their job is to fetch information from the servers that we were talking about before. And like that, you have the client-server interaction where clients are in the user's hands and servers are somewhere else in the world. It could be literally anywhere, and they have all the information that you want. So let's say, for example, a client could be your mobile phone and you access the Netflix app. So the Netflix app is a client, which will obviously, I'm sure you all know that your phone doesn't actually have all of Netflix's movies on the phone. it's going to access the server. It's going to communicate with the server. So it has proactive code that will say, all right, I want to communicate with this server to go fetch, let's say, this particular movie, whatever. You can choose whatever movie you want. And then the server will give that information back to it. So here's a quick little diagram that shows a bunch of clients, and they're communicating through the web. The web isn't something tangible, really. The web is just this concept of having all these computers connected together. And then the client side will communicate over here. The client side will communicate with the server side. The side will communicate with the server side and go fetch the information that it needs. And so that way you guys understand that most of the internet is stored somewhere else and not in your home and not on your computers, and you're going to fetch that information. When you go on Instagram.com, what it first does is your client, so your browser, simply does a little request to Instagram's client and says, all right, I would like to have the information for, let's say, Nicolas MacBeth. That's myself. And then the server over here is going to respond, all right, but I can't give you that information unless you authenticate, unless I know that you are Nicolas MacBeth. So it's going to ask the client for an authentication. So it'll serve, the word is serve. The server will serve the login page to the client, and then the client will show that to the user. So myself, I'll be able to enter my password and my username, which will send it back to the server, and the server is going to say, all right, you are now authenticated as being the correct person. I can now send you the proper information. And then it's going to send back all the information which me, the user, will be able to see when I write Instagram.com. And obviously all of this is done nearly instantaneous with computers we have these days. And so what's an API? Because the point of this workshop is servers and APIs. So now that you guys know what servers are, which are basically computers somewhere else in the world that are usually there to respond to requests from clients, what's an API? So an API is an extremely valuable asset in the developer's toolbox. So an API is, and as you guys saw from last week, you guys saw, libraries and packages and stuff like that. Libraries and packages are basically code that is pre-written by someone else that you can use. So me as a developer, I will write code that will do certain things, and then I'm going to use code that was already written by someone else through a package or a module or a library. Those are all kind of synonyms. And what is an API? An API is basically a package or a module or a library. So to repeat again, an API is basically pre-written code made by someone else that you can use. So for example, let's say on my website, I want to add some like a payment processing thing. I want you to be able to buy something and pay for it on my website. I'm going to use, for example, PayPal's API. So I'm going to tell PayPal, hey, this person wants to buy something for $12. Me, the developer, I will write this and I'll send that information to PayPal and I'll let them handle it, because it's extremely complex to play with banking transactions and transactions in general, credit cards, all those things. You, as a developer, maybe you have a company that works on this, obviously, then you would be building this on your own. But if me as a developer alone, I'm absolutely not going to create the entire infrastructure to pass transactions or banking information and stuff like that. You need extremely secure infrastructure. You need a million things that I can't build on my own, obviously. And so I'm going to use PayPal's API or any other company's API, which is their pre-written code, and I'm just going to give them one piece of information. What's the one piece of information? I want this amount of money taken from this credit card. That's it. And they'll actually take care of doing all that stuff. So that's what an API is. An API is pre-written code that I can access to use as a developer on my own. The main difference between what we call APIs and what we call libraries and packages and stuff like that is that APIs normally live on someone else's server. So a package or a library you'll usually download and call as a function, which I'll teach you guys in JavaScript Basics very soon, what a function call is. But the difference between an API and a library is that the API is on someone else's server. So it's usually intellectual property or code that can't be given to each individual developer. So it's living on someone else's server, and you need to communicate with that server to ask what you want it to do for you. whereas a library or a package will usually be downloaded onto your own computer, and you can even look at the code on your own and modify it if you want to. So that's what an API is. It's code which is on another server somewhere else in the world that you can interact with, and it can do stuff for you. So for example, payment processing, or for example, Spotify's API, you can make it play a certain song on a certain speaker. There's a text messaging API, which we'll actually be playing with after. Easily with like 15 lines of code, I can send an actual text message to a cell phone. There's APIs to find GIFs, like cute little GIFs to put into your website. There's APIs for checkout carts. There's APIs for basically everything in this world, honestly. And so let's get to JavaScript basics. So a lot of you haven't coded before or have barely started, or anyways, basically I'll cover some JavaScript basics. Why I've picked JavaScript. JavaScript is a really cool language in the sense that it's easy to learn, it's highly approachable, and it's very forgiving. So as you may know, there's a lot of languages in the world that you can use to code. Different languages just have different performance values, different levels of like things that you can do, things that you can interact with, and stuff like that. And so JavaScript is a really easy to learn language, first of all. It's very forgiving. It won't start whining when you do small mistakes in syntax and stuff like that. And also, it's used widely by a lot of people. And like I was saying before, there's servers and there's clients, right? Usually, and for almost every language other than JavaScript, you need to create your client with one language and create your server with another language. Say I want to make Netflix. As you know, Netflix has a client, like I was talking about, the cell phone application, and they also have servers because they need to be able to serve all of their movies and stuff. And so if you don't use JavaScript, you need two different languages to create your clients, which is also a synonym of front end, and you need a different language to create your server. This is not always true, but mainly. Okay, and JavaScript is really cool because it's one language where you can do both. You can build your front ends with JavaScript, which JavaScript was in the past built to only make front ends, and recently was ported to be able to make servers. So I'll show you guys some basic JavaScript code. It doesn't, like, the code could work on a front end or a back end. It doesn't pertain to any of the two in particular, but I'll teach you guys some basic JavaScript because I think it's a really easy language to start with, and you can build fun stuff fairly quickly. And they also have a great community of developers. So if you go on the internet and you go for NPM, which is the community of JavaScript developers, there are, I don't want to say millions, I have no idea how much there actually are, but there are hundreds of thousands of packages, which is basically pre-written code, like I was talking about before, that you can use. So let's say you want to create you want to create something that automatically sends a text at every certain time in the day. There are packages that make it easy for you already, pre-written code, like I was saying, for you to send those texts automatically at a certain point. And so my point is, it's a very easy to learn language because there's a lot of people and a nice big community of people to help you. If you go online, you ask questions, or you read up on questions. Anyways, very accessible language. So let's get started with some basics. Does anyone have any questions up to now, by the ways? Alrighty, I'll take that as a no. You have to unmute yourself, by the way, if you have a question. Just okay, perfect. So I'm gonna send you all a link to it's called glitch.com. Basically what it'll allow you to do, it'll allow you to copy my project here and modify it to make it your own, and you can follow basically what I'm doing at the same time. So I'm sending it in the workshops channel. If you guys could all take like 2 seconds to open that, if you want to follow by working on it. If not, just don't do anything and you can wait. I'll give you guys a couple seconds to get it open, and I will drink some water. Alrighty. So, actually, can you guys say like me in the chat real quick just to see for those who actually opened glitch.com? Because if no one opened it, then I'll do it differently. Just put a little me. All right, I like that. I got 2 people. Okay, pretty good. Photosynthesis, yeah, perfect. 4 people. Let's go. Alrighty, 5, 6. Hell yeah, keep it going. Can I get a 7? Can I get a 7? I can't get a 7. Okay. So, okay. Anyways, so most of the code is already written. Basically, all of the code is already written. Oh no, sorry, that's for the API example afterwards. So let's start with basics.js. Okay, just open that file. By the way, first of all, if you want to make it dark mode like me, because I freaking hate anything that's white mode. That sounded racist as hell, but that's totally not what I meant. You can make it dark by, let me just find, change theme. You click on here on the top left, and you press on change theme, and then you'll be able to change it between white and dark mode. Light and dark mode. I see that people are typing. I'll just, if you guys have questions, you can cut me off or you can ask them. I prefer if you cut me off though, because I'll be able to better see the questions. Okay, so there's on the left, you might have test server open like this, so it looks like you have a bunch of files. You can just click on the little arrow over here on the left to close it down. Basically, that's if even we have a lot of time at the end, I'll be able to show you guys how to get your own server up and running on your own computer. So yeah, you're probably seeing a page like this without the terminal. Just go ahead and click on Tools and then Terminal to bring your terminal up here, because this is going to be an important tool for developers, and you're going to need this to run the code. All right, so, and on the left here, so you saw that you had a folder over here. You have files, so these are all the different files that I had already written. Just go ahead, you can ignore the other files for now, just go ahead and open basics.js. First of all, the file ends with .js since it is a JavaScript file. That's plain and simple. You guys have surely used computers before. .jpeg is a picture file. .exe is an executable file for a program. .mp3 is music. MP4 is a video. On and on. JS means JavaScript. And in that sense, your computer is going to know it's a JavaScript file. Right now we're doing everything in the browser, but you would be able to download these files and run everything locally on your computer with no problem. You would just need to download something called Node.js. But anyways, I'll get into that a little later. So let's start with basics. Programming is basically taking data and manipulating it in a way that you want it to be manipulated. And yeah, that's basically it. When you're talking about logic, so servers, so backends, we're not talking about clients right now. We're not talking about visual components. When you're just talking about logic, it's about taking data and doing a bunch of things to it and then spitting back an answer that you actually want in the end. So how do you do that? First of all, there's the concept of variables and by the way, everything I'm about to say now is specific to JavaScript. But a lot of these concepts are agnostic to the language that you actually use. So let's say tomorrow you want to learn Python or Java or any other programming language. A lot of these concepts are going to be the same in those languages. It's only the implementations that change. So small limitations or things that you can and can't do with those languages. Okay, so let's start with variables. So variables are, you can imagine them as small boxes of information, okay? So I'll get more into that in a second. How do you declare a variable in JavaScript? So in JavaScript, you write let, okay? This has changed recently. You might have, if you know a little bit of JavaScript, you might have seen var in the past, but now it is better practice to use let. So just like in math, when you finish a math problem, you're trying to kind of declare some information in a math problem, which is what we're doing. We're declaring a variable. You say let, and then you need to give that variable a name. The name could be absolutely anything. No, not true. There's like certain limitations where you can't use some weird characters or something, but whatever. Just give it a normal English name. And the best practice, in JavaScript is to start the first word with lowercase. So you say, let's say, day, and then every consequent word you need to write, well, you should write with an uppercase. So let's say day of week. So like this, you see the first word started with a lowercase, and then the rest, each word started with an uppercase. And why did I write the entire thing into one word? That's because JavaScript interprets everything as, every time you put a space, JavaScript understands that you're trying to say something else. You're trying to say something different. So if I would have said day of week like this, it's very confused because I'm trying to put 3 words and it doesn't know what's going on. So variable names always need to be all stuck together into one word. So basically you say let day of week. So we just name that variable and then you put equals. The equal sign says, okay, so what do you want to put inside this variable? What do you want this variable's value to be? So let me make that difference clear. Day of week is the name of the variable. So it's, let's say it's a box that you have, like a packaging box, and you wrote a label on that box. You wrote day of week, okay? Then in that box, you can put absolutely whatever you want, okay? And well, whatever, like obviously there are limitations, but in the sense that you can put multiple different things. So let's say you want to put a number. Day of week equals 12, okay? This is valid. So now day of week's value is 12. Let's say another one. Let's just write a couple of them and then I'll explain to you what they are. So I'll name another one true or false. I'll name another one name Nicolas. I'll name another one all right, so what are these things that I put? Let's break down. So let's go back to the first one. Day of week is now a variable that has the value 12 inside. So if ever I use day of week anywhere in my code, what will its value be? It's going to be 12. So then you can ask me, okay, then why wouldn't you just write 12 everywhere in your code where you're going to need that variable? Well, the whole point in code is that you should write the least possible and you should repeat the least possible. And so let's say day of week is used multiple places in my code, and then finally I want to change 12 to 11. I'm going to need to go Control F every single place in my code where I need that variable, and I'm going to need to replace it on my own to 11. Instead, if I have it in a variable over here, day of week, I could just change the value of the variable over here to 11 like this, and now every single place where I reference that variable, where I use that variable, it's going to be 11. Okay, so now we answered the question of why actually use variables. So let's see a couple of different things we can do with variables. We can put numbers in them. We can put Boolean values. So wait, I'll just put a comment right over here. So this is a number. This is a Boolean. By the way, when I put / like this, and you can see the code is grayed out, that means that you're making a comment, which a comment is code that is completely ignored by the JavaScript like engine, and you can write literally whatever you want. You can write complete gibberish. It doesn't care. Whatever's after the / for that entire line is going to be ignored. I can put a string. So a string over here, this is a string. Basically what a string does is in between quotation marks, they need to be, quotation marks. They need to be in between quotation marks or single quotes. They can be, oh yeah, you want me to zoom in a little bit? I got you. Let me just see if there's a way for me to increase the font size without zooming. Okay, whatever, I'll zoom. Alrighty, that's better. Oh my lord, my computer's not liking this. Hold on. So many things running on my computer. It's not having a good time. Okay, so over here, you can either have double quotes or single quotes. And once again, in this box named name, so this box has a label of name on it. What do we put inside? We put Nicolas. But you need to make a very important distinction in between words that have no quotation marks and words that have quotation marks. If I write this over here, okay, let's do a little. Actually, before I get into that, I'm just going to show you guys one thing quickly. Console.log. Console.log is your best friend in JavaScript. Also, every single line you write is supposed to end with a semicolon, by the way. A lot of languages will actually not let you run them if you don't do this. JavaScript will let you run, but it's better practice to put it there. So what is console.log? Console.log is a function, which we'll see in 2 seconds. We'll go over that, which accepts one argument. So in between parentheses over here, we can write whatever we want in quotation marks, and those will be put on the console when we run this code. So let me show you guys that. 2 seconds. So console.log, hello world. Usually you want to always write hello world for your first piece of code. And how do you run this code? So you go into your terminal over here. You write node, because you're telling the computer to use node to run this specific file. It's okay if you don't specifically understand that. It's a little more advanced. So you just write node twilio.js. Sorry, wrong file. Basics.js. So you're telling it to run this specific JavaScript file. So if I click enter over here, you see what's spit out under hello world. So this console.log, all it does is it takes whatever is in parentheses and it puts it into the terminal. If no one has questions, I'll continue, but this is very important. Console.log basically just takes whatever's inside the parentheses and puts it into the console. And so this way you can test many things. So let's add on to that and let's do something over here. Let's go under the code. Well, actually, let's go right here, console.log. And usually you write one thing per line. Technically, you can write many if you have the semicolon, but it's incredibly ugly and it would be impossible for anyone, including yourself, to read like a couple days later. So, okay, so let's say we want to log day of the week. Over here, I'm asking the program to console.log day of week, okay? But day of week is simply a box, and JavaScript knows this. Day of week is just a box. So it needs to go see what is inside that box. What is the true value of day of week? And over here, it's 11. So we should expect the code over here to spit out 11. So if you go back to the terminal over here, you have to click here, obviously, to start controlling the terminal. By the way, a quick little hack for terminal users, and this works in basically any terminal, even if you use command on a Windows computer or PowerShell or even terminal on a Mac, anything you use. Obviously you need to select this over here, and if you click the up arrow on your keyboard, like up, like the arrow that goes up, I don't know how to say that more clear, it'll actually put the same command on the screen for you, like in one little key press, and then if you click enter, it'll run it again. So that's what we want to do. We want to run it again. And as you guys can see, it console logs, it puts into the console once again hello world, because we didn't remove that, and it puts day of week. And as you guys saw, we told JavaScript at the beginning of the code that day of week was equal to 11. So over here, it's smart enough to know, okay, the user wants me to console.log day of week. Now we're console.logging day of week, but what is the actual value of day of week? It's 11. Now, notice over here there's no quotation marks, and over here there are quotation marks. Quotation marks mean, JavaScript, please use the literal value that is over here. Please use the actual words that I put in quotation marks. No quotation marks means, please go fetch what the value of the variable is. So let's say right under here, I go console.log, whoops, and I put day of week in between quotation marks, I want someone in the chat to tell me what is going to be logged by the console. Like, what are we going to see appear over here? Come on, I want one person in the chat to tell me what this line will log to the console. I see people typing, so I'm waiting patiently. Oh, everyone that was typing kind of got spooked. Come on, guys. It's okay if you fail. The bigger the fail, the bigger the learning value. Sorry, I have to speak in proper English. Okay, so I'll run it since you guys are a little shy. It's okay. It's okay to be shy. So now you see it logs day of week. Because, oh, there you go. Hello world, 11 day of week. Look at this dude, the manly man. Also the smart man, if you know what I mean. Oh, Pat MacBeth also, perfect. There we go. Sorry, maybe the messages were coming in late for me, but good job, guys. But yeah, basically, so since over here we put day of week in quotation marks, we're telling JavaScript, please use the actual value that I put in quotation marks. Do not go get the variable that is up here. That's a small distinction that you need to make. So here, name is a variable and Nicolas is the actual, I guess the messages are coming in late because I see that you guys wrote it a couple of times. My bad. Anyways, so yeah, this is the difference between writing day of week and quotation mark day of week. Also, in JavaScript, quotation marks and single quotes are completely interchangeable. There's some things where you would want to use one over the other, but whatever, it comes back to the exact same. All right, so let's get back to where we were up here. So we have numbers, which are numbers. Literally, you can write whatever you want. You can write decimals. You can write big numbers. You can write what you want. You have true or false. There's only two values that Booleans can have, true or false. Very self-explanatory, which literally just says, is this true or is this false? You can have strings, which are words, like English words or any language you want, just like words that humans understand. And so whatever's inside of this string, the computer's going to ignore because it doesn't really understand it. This is English. Nicolas is teaching a class right now. You know, like the JavaScript has no idea what's going on, but he just uses this as one big thing and just gives it to us. He doesn't really care what's inside of the quotes. And then there's arrays. So what's an array? An array is a set of values that have an order. So this array has three things inside, and you can put whatever you want inside. You can even put variables inside of the array. So I can have this over here. I can have name. And so this array holds 4 items. It holds 1 at its first index, true at its second index, hello at its third index, and name at its fourth index. Now, arrays count in odd manners. In many programming languages, this is true. This is index 0. This is index 1. This is index 2. And this is index 3. And so arrays start counting at index 0. That's how multiple programming languages work. So if I do console.log over here and I put array, which is my variable array, which is holding those items, it's going to console log the array. And if I do console log array like this, 2. By the way, this is how you access a certain item inside of the array. If you write array like this, it'll do the entire array. And if you do array with a number over here in between square brackets, which I also, by the way, call square boys. Please refer to square brackets as square boys. And these guys are called squiggly boys, by the way. Just in programming lingo, squiggly boys and square boys. Sorry. Anyways, you put the index of the array right after the word array, and then it tells JavaScript, all right, I want what's at index number 2. So if we count, this is index 0, this is index 1, and this is index 2. So this should log the entire array, and this second line should log the array, the item in the array that is at index 2, which is hello. So let's run this code once again with the up arrow. We get node basics, and then we run it, and there we go. So the first line has our entire array, which worked correctly since it put 1, it put true, it put hello, and then it put Nicolas is teaching a class right now. Wow, I misspelled teaching. Anyways, which is actually, it didn't just write name, right? It was smart enough to go look at what's the value inside of name and give us this entire sentence over here. So let me just fix this real quick. There we go. Sorry, let me just, perfect. Okay. Yeah, so that's basically it. You guys know how to access different parts in the array. This would do 1, this would do true, this will do hello, and this would print out the long sentence that I put. Okay, so let's move on. I don't know what other variable types there are. Okay, so since we didn't, so these variables, we declared them with let. So this was the first time that we were ever mentioning these variables: day of week, true or false, name, and array. So over here, I'm going to console log true or false. And then under here, I'm going to take true or false, and I'm going to give it a new value. I'm going to give it the true value because it's false over here at the beginning. I'm going to give it another value, and I'm going to say console.log true or false. Over here, you guys will see that this will first log false and then log true, as you can see down here. So basically what I did, oh my God. Basically what I did is I console logged it while it was still false. Then if you go over here and you do not write the let value, which you shouldn't because you've already declared true or false. True or false is already a box, if you will, that exists in JavaScript's mind. You already declared it and you gave it a value of false, but now you gave it a new value. Hey, your value is now true. So now if you console log it, it is now true. What else can we do with this? Let's say day of week was 12, okay? So let's go over here. Let's console log day of week. And then I want day of week to change to something else now. I want it to be day of week. I want it to be 6 over the number of day of week right now. So day of week is 12. I want it to be 18. But I'm not just going to do 12 plus 6 because I don't know what the current value of day of week is. What if day of week becomes 13? Then I would want the new value to be 19 because I just want it to be 6 over what day of week is at the current time. So day of week is 12 here, but we don't care what day of week's value is. We just want day of week to become 6 more than what it is right now. So what you can do is this over here. Now you're saying, hey, day of week will be equal to whatever day of week is right now, which is 12, plus 6. So it's going to evaluate this whole thing, 12 plus 6, which is now 18, and then it's going to store the new value inside day of week. So then if we go down here to console.log day of week, and we run this with node basics.js, you can click the up arrow. I'll remind you guys to run. You see we have 12 and then we have 18. So that's some basic variable manipulation. Let me just look at something. Let me just drink some water. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Let me just take 10 seconds to drink water. Alrighty. So there's another type of very interesting data structure that you can put in a variable, and that is the object. So Oh, yeah, that's what I was starting to talk about before. If you want a variable's value not to change, so if you do not want to allow at any time in the code, which program do I prefer to code on? Depends what I'm coding. I really enjoy Visual Studio Code. I can show you right now. I really enjoy using Visual Studio Code for JavaScript since it's just a text editor. It's light and it has lots of really cool stuff for you to use. If not, it depends on the language. Some of the languages need IDEs like Java, which is completely different than JavaScript, by the way. I use IDEA. Anyways, long story short. What was I saying? So, constants. So if I write const, which means constant, I'm saying that I do not want the variable to ever change its value in the code, and that can be very important for multiple reasons. You can want to have something that you want to make sure never changes. You want to make sure another developer doesn't change, because these code bases for these big applications like Netflix and Uber and all these, they're millions and millions of lines of code. They're incredibly long, and so sometimes if you don't want a certain value of a variable to change because it's very important in other places in the code, you would put this constant. So let's declare constant object. You can name it whatever you want, and we're going to create an object. This is a very important data type in the class. And basically how this works is this is like a dictionary. So, all right, Pat MacBeth, you gotta go, but thank you for coming. Basically, how objects work is you have they're also called dictionaries in Python, and which is really cool. It's a really good name. Basically, they have words and then their definitions. It's super simple. Words and then their definitions. And so. Hold on, I'm disconnected here. I hope, can you guys hear me properly? Okay, perfect, thanks. I don't know what's going on with this page over here. So basically objects are a data type where you have a word. So let's say Superman, and then you have its value. So its value could be a long string of text. It can be basically anything. You can have birthday, and then here it could be a number. It could be like, that's a poor example. Let's say 12. I'm just going to write this number with, let's say 12. Okay, whatever. And you have to finish every single line with a comma. Birthday, Superman. What else? Let's have is a student. And these ones you declare with colons. This is just how it works. True. Basically, you can have all these values, and this is like a dictionary, like I'm saying. You have this word that maps to a certain definition, okay? And so this, just like with the array, you are able to access those definitions. So if we go into the object variable, and then we just use these square boys, the square brackets, instead of using numbers like we did in the array we use numbers as the indices over here. Now you use the actual name. So now you would go, sorry, you don't need the quotes. Yeah, you need the quotes. You can do Superman like this. So now like this, we can go get what is the definition of Superman. And in that sense, it's objects, it's a little more advanced, but objects have, in certain situations, a lot more advantages over the array, and the array have advantages over the objects in other situations when you want to make your code quicker or more performant and stuff like that. Let me just run this code to show you guys that it will output the proper thing. So now, please glitch, come on, can you please load? My page is frozen, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, there we go. So if I run this code, node basics.js, you can see here that it console logs exactly what I wanted it to. So what did JavaScript do? It went into object. It was like, okay, I know you want me to look at object. And then I said, please look at Superman. So then it went to Superman and it spit me out the value that I wanted over here. So that's basically how objects work. Now, a couple of other things. There's loops and, well, if I refer back to my PowerPoint here, I wanted to talk about comparisons, loops, and functions. Okay. So comparisons are basically, I'm sure you've heard, if you've heard of programming, what is an if-else? So basically, over here, you can do if something and then else something else. So let's say if object is a student, we want this code to run. So if statements have an if, then they have in between parentheses, they have what is the condition, okay? What is the condition you want me to check? So it's going to check this condition. I'm just going to do this because it's going to be more simple. And then in between the square brackets is the code that will run if that condition is true. So object is a student is going to go check inside of object, which you guys can see over here. And it's going to check is a student, and that is effectively true. So it's going to check. So as you guys can see, this variable is going to evaluate to true. I hope everyone agrees with me. And then how do you check? And then JavaScript just needs to check is true equals to true. The answer is yes. So if the answer is yes, it will run the code that the user is a student. Okay, I'm just gonna put this back over here. Else, so we can put an else clause, which will basically, so if this thing is true, whatever is inside these curly black brackets will run. Okay, so whatever is in there will run. If it is not true, whatever is in this will not run. So this code console.log will be completely ignored if this thing is not true, and it's going to go into the else. Okay, so then the else will run. So basically they're mutually exclusive. If whatever is in the if is true, this part will run and this part will not. If it is false, this part will not run and this part will run. So here we're going to say console.log the user is not a student. And as you guys maybe could tell, I did a very grave mistake here. I did not put my quotation marks, and that would have told JavaScript would have not been happy and there would have been an error thrown. Alrighty, so if I run this code with the up arrow, node basics, the user is a student. Hooray, because is a student over here is true, so it works. As you guys noticed, I used equals because when you use just one equals, that's for variables when you say, okay, this is the value that is going inside this box, so this variable. And when there's two equals, that's you're asking JavaScript to check, is this equality true? Is it true that object is a student is equal to true? You can also ask it to check if it's not true. For numbers, you can check is one thing greater than the other. Sorry, it scrolled up. So let's say there were two numbers here. You can check if one is greater than the other, smaller than the other, smaller or equal than the other. You can do a bunch of checks like this. We won't get into it that much, but basically these are a bunch of logic flow options that you have that you can compare two variables. Well, over here you see this is a variable, and over here I'm using the actual raw value of true. And you can mix and match with those as much as you want. So those are comparisons. Now let's go for functions. So in code and in all languages, you can write functions. How do you define a function? Let's call this function add and log. So what this function is going to do is going to take two numbers, it's going to add them together, and it's going to console log them for you. So this is how you write a function, okay? You write function, you write the name of the function, then you put parentheses, and then you put curly boys. Okay, and the way I put the curly boys is like that just because it looks better to read the code afterwards. And so over here, what are you going to put in add and log? You're going to put parameters, okay? So it's like the example that you gave last week, Stephen. Basically, you can do anything with functions. And these things here are basically the arguments that you're giving to the function. So let's say you want to add two numbers. You want to write a function that adds two numbers, but you don't want to hard code it that it always does 2 + 4 or 3 + 4. You want to let the developer in the future add whatever two numbers he wants to put, because maybe this function is going to be used 100 different times in the code and other places. And how do you call the function? This is how you call the function. So add and log, you just write it like that with your parentheses and you put in your parameters. So let's see how it's built. In add and log, you need to say, hey, what type of parameters can we put in here? So we're going to say value 1 and value 2. So these are two values that will be added together. And what we're going to do over here is we're going to create a new variable called result, because you guys already learned how to make variables. So result is equal to value 1 plus value 2. So you can add two things like that. This is true about multiple languages. You can add, multiply, divide. You can do even a bunch of other things, but we won't get into that right now. And then afterwards, we will console.log result, because now in our result will be the value of the addition of the two. So let's go over that again. This function, this is just the declaration of the function. This function alone does absolutely nothing. So this just says that, okay, I can accept one value and I can accept two values. And what I will do with those values is I will addition them together and I will store them in a variable called result. And then I will console log said result. This is what this function does. So right now, like this, it'll never do anything. I'm just going to remove this code so it stops console logging for us. If you want to do that, by the way, put a bunch of lines in a comment like that so it stops running. You can press Control and then slash, like whatever the button you use for comments. If you press Control and that button, it'll take all those lines and it'll make them into a comment. All right, so this function is going to add both numbers together and it's going to console log them. But this is just, once again, I want to say it, this is just the declaration of the function. I'm just saying, hey, this is what the function does. This is this guy's job. But right now he doesn't even have two numbers to work with. So we need to ask him to actually do his job and give him the two numbers we want him to do the job with. And that's where calling a function comes in. So when you call a function, sorry, we're calling this function that we just created, and we're going to say, all right, I want you to do your work, do your thing with these two numbers that I'm about to put in, 1 and 2. So the result should be 3, and let's hope I didn't break anything, and it should work. So it's going to, what is this going to do? It's going to start this function here, and value 1 here will be replaced into 1, and value 2 is like a variable that will be replaced by value 2. And so over here, result will be equal to value 1, which is now 1, and value 2, which is now 2. And then it's going to console log the result. So let's run this. And as you guys can see, yay, it console logs 3. So we can do as many of these as we want. We can say add and log, 23 and 678, and run this again. 701. I'm going to trust JavaScript on that. And so yeah, so it adds them together and it logs them. And even more fun, you can do add and log. And over here, instead of putting raw numbers, we can put variables. And so let's make it add day of week over, no, let's make it add the number 1 over here. Okay, actually, this is going to be a test for you guys. I want to see those messages. I want to add this 1 over here inside of array, and I want to add this birthday 12. So how would I write that? How would I, let me just, okay, let's start with this. All right, Fred. Fred, this is true. You can do that directly and it will give you the correct answer because whatever is inside the parentheses is evaluated before you do. Fred is asking this, by the way. If we would do console.log in parentheses value1 plus value2. This works because whatever is in those two variables will be evaluated, and then after console logged, basically after it's going to be put into the console. So this works, by the way, guys. I was just doing this because it's more verbose and it's like it was more practice with variables, but this works. A lot of the code here can be done in many less lines, just to make it more verbose. But it's a very good point, yes, because anything that is addition or division and stuff like that, basically everything inside of here will be evaluated before it is actually logged. So this is 100% valid. Or the manly man, I see that you answered the question. So array 0, perfect. Yeah, that is what I'm looking for. So over here, like we said, we wanted to add this over here. So this 1 over here, we wanted to add this 1. So whatever was at the first index, so index 0 of array. And I also want to add the other one. I know you wrote day of week, but I want to add the 12 over here. I want to add this 12, whatever is the value of birthday is in the object. So how would I access that? Because let's say they weren't the same number. They're the same number in this case, but how would I access the number 12 over here? Birthday. I'm waiting on you guys. I don't know if there's a delay or you guys are just not answering, but I want over here, add and log. I'm calling the function with the numbers that I want right now. The first number I want was the number 1 that was in the array over here. We got that one. But now I want now I want this 12 over here. How do I access this 12? I have no idea if the messages are slow or no one answered. So if you guys want to unmute yourselves and answer, up to you. Yeah. Perfect. I see you guys are a bunch typing, so you'd probably all have it. But yes, object. Oh, I made a mistake there. Birthday. I did not mean to put this. I meant to put this. Yep. Perfect. So this is how. Oh, JavaScript is not happy. What is going on? Oh, I don't know what I did here, but I think I removed something by mistake. Anyways, yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, so you would call it with array 0 and then object birthday. And then this object birthday will evaluate to this 12 over here, and array 0 will evaluate to 1 like you guys saw. Let's run that. And we have our 13. It's printing twice because we made it console log twice here, both methods, and I can show you here that it works. So there you go. There you go for functions. So you can declare functions and you can call functions. And then the last thing I want to show you guys are for loops. So computers are only able to do, when you're trying to check something, computers are only able to check one thing at a time. Let's say you ask me to find if this array has the value hello inside. I as a human, I'm just going to look at it and I can find the hello right away. But computers aren't able to do that. They need to look at one thing at a time inside this array. So let's loop over this array. So I'm just going to, just to make this a little quicker, because I want to show you guys the API at the end. I'm just going to have this for loop already written for me. Okay. So let's build this for loop. So what is a for loop? Basically, I declare a new, the for loop is written like this, for, and then there's a parentheses, and then there's the squiggly boys. So the squiggly boys are the code that I will run, here code. This is the code that I will run for every single time that I do the loop. Okay, and what chooses how many times I do the loop, you may ask? Well, I will answer your question right now. So I declare the variable I equals 0. Okay, that's all I did. Now, I will run this loop until I, so I is at 0 right now. I will run this loop until I is smaller than array.length. What does that mean? So right after you see I++, which means that for every loop, this I variable will go up 1. So what does that mean? So array.length, what is the array.length is literally just the length of the array. Okay, this is just as what is the word? That's a property of an array. They have length properties, so you can use that. And so basically what this loop is going to do, it's going to start at 0. So we saw that I is equal to 0. I'm going to put this in the comments. At the beginning, I is equal to 0. It's going to run the code. Then it's going to say I++. So then it's going to go I is equal to 1, run the code. Then it's going to say I++. So I is equal to 2, run code, I++, and then I will be equal to 3. So when I is equal to 3, is 3 smaller than array.length? The length of array is 4. 3 is smaller than 4, so it will run again. So it's going to run the loop again. But then I will be equal to 4 because we just did I++ here. So now I is equal to 4 and it tries to run the loop again, but is 4 smaller than 4 because array.length here is 4. The length of that array up there is 4. So no, this is not true. 4 is not smaller than 4. So then this loop stops running and it ends there. That's where it ends. So to show you guys that, we're going to do a little console.log inside the loop, which, what does it log? It logs array at index I. So this is sometimes something that's a little hard to wrap your heads around. But basically what's happening here is we start the loop at 0. So I over here is equal to 0. And it will increment by 1 to go through the loop. And then it's going to console.log whatever is at that index of the array. So the loop is going to start at 0. It's going to console.log what is at the index 0. Then it's going to go to 1. It's going to console.log what's at 1. Go to 2, console.log 2. Go to 3, console.log 3. Philip, you ask a very valid question on why would you run loops. This type of loop, the for loop, is it's there mainly to go over an array. Why would you want to go over an array? Like I was saying before, if you want to check if something exists inside of it, if you want to also run something, you know add and log. Maybe I would have wanted to run this function on every single one of every single one of the indexes in that array. So instead of writing add and log, like a million times, and every time going array 1 and then array 2 and then array 3, if you have an array that has like a million things and you would want to run on every single one of that arrays like a function, then you put a for loop so it does it all for you. Instead, you would have to write every single line of code and this would be extremely long. There's also other types of loops. So there's those for loops. So that's when you want to either find something in an array or iterate over an array for some reason, or like I said, call a function on all those arrays. But there's also while loops. So a while loop, I won't get into it, but a while loop is a loop that does something while a certain value is true. So that doesn't even iterate over numbers. It'll just run, and maybe you want it to create a while loop that runs until, let's say you wanted a while loop that sounds an alarm until the user clicks on a button, okay? So you would do while button is clicked equals false. So, and then in the squiggly boys, you would do, I'll just write it so it's more visual. While, let's say, I'm writing false code here just to show you the idea. Button is clicked equals false, sound alarm. Okay, so in this case, you're sounding the alarm until the variable button is clicked becomes false, and then after becomes true, because that means the user has clicked the button, and then you stop running this loop. This is why loops are important, basically. So you, all the time that button is clicked is equal to false, you sound the alarm, and then the second it becomes true, since the user clicked the button, you can stop sounding the alarm or something. This is just a random example. But so yeah, this code will go over the entire array and console log what is that index in the array. So let me show you. So look at that. Let me take off these this over here. I'll just comment it out since you guys know how comments work. Now JavaScript's gonna ignore it. So now look at this. In that array up here, I had one true hello and name was this long sentence. And so basically this for loop went over one and it console.logged. It did console.log whatever is at the index 0. Then it did console.log whatever is at the index 1, and then 2, and then 3. So basically it console.logged everything that was in the array for us automatically. And if I would add stuff in this array, it would still work because array.length will change when I add stuff in the array. It's all done automatically. You don't need to hard code any of this. All right, so that's, if you guys don't have questions, don't have that much time left, so I'll show you guys what I wanted to show you, like the API call, the example like of things that you can do with JavaScript. Does anyone have any questions literally on anything I said or didn't say or anything? And you guys can cut me off or ask the question. I'm just gonna drink water to give you guys time if you want to write a question. Thanks. I pulled out the what's it called? The podcast microphone for this, so I got some high quality voice going through. But thanks. Oh yeah, let me plug my podcast right now. Me and Philou actually, that is in this chat. Easy plug. Yeah, we've stopped now because of quarantine. We can't see each other and it's been a while, but we had a season 1 of our podcast where we just have what we like to call intellectual conversations, and big problems of today's societies. You can find it, I'll send it later. Anyways, let's get back to this. But yeah, always learn more and always try to have these smart conversations with your friends to advance as human beings. Yeah, I'll send it, Stephen. I'll send it at the end. But yeah, we have a podcast. It's like half French, half English, and we just talk about new technologies and things going on in the world. And basically, we want like the young generation like us to be able to have. There you go. There's the YouTube link. It's on Spotify and SoundCloud if you want. Wait, what is the? There we go. Oof, it looks horrible on the big screen. I gotta fix that. Anyways, so let's get back to this. Now you guys could see I don't know if you guys open the twilio.js file, do you guys have code inside of it? I don't know if I removed it for you guys. Maybe I may have removed it. I don't know why I would have done that, but if someone can confirm that there is code. Okay, perfect. So there is code in twilio.js, and I'll just run you guys down through it. Oh, Fred, I like the play of words. I'm very curious to see what it's about. Well done. Yeah, so I'll run you guys through this twilio.js and show you guys how you guys can get it set up on your phones also. So yeah, let's do this. What am I looking for? Okay, twilio.js. Your credentials file should look like this. That's because, let me start. Twilio is an API. We were talking about APIs before. So Twilio is an API that allows you to send text messages to actual like cell phones. So actual phones, like with code, you can send a text message to an actual phone. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. But you have an account ID, you have an authentication token, you have a personal number they give you, and then you need to put the actual number you want to send the text to. And so I wasn't going to put all that on the internet because that's very dangerous. Everyone, this is a good lesson as a developer. You never put your credentials on the internet. You need to watch out with that, because then people will scrape the internet for it, and what's the word? They'll steal. They'll do stuff that will charge your credit cards later on and stuff like that. Anyways, so I just put it. Wow. Literally, as I'm saying not to do it, I do it. F in the chat, boys. Okay. Wow, that was a big fail. Anyways, so over here, it's not a very important API, so whatever. So this code over here, I put, you need Node.js installed. That's if you run it on your own computer. Yeah, I know, it's recorded. It's okay. It's not very important at all. Twilio. So these two things over here, you would need to install them on your computer if you were to run this code on your computer, okay? But now that you're running it from the browser over here, I already made in the package.json for it to install for you, so not very important. Then you need the credential files. So here, this is the example file, it's okay. I made 4 variables. I made the account ID variable, authentication token, from number, to number. All these variables, and we just saw variables in 2 seconds ago, will have actual values here. These are not real values. And you need to put these values within, like, you'll find these values when you create your account. So if you go on twilio.com, and I'll send the link, well, actually the link is over here in twilio.js, quick start node over here. And you guys can do this all, like, do it after, so you don't create your account right now and waste the time, but you can do it after, and you create your account, and then it just tells you need to create like a fake phone number, and not a fake phone number, but like you need to assign one of their numbers and whatever. You just follow the steps, and then you'll have credentials, and then you can enter them all here, okay? So once they're here, what this line of code does is it says, hey, these variables that I just declared in this file, I'm just saying I'm exporting them so we are able to use them in another file. That's all this does. Okay, so in credentials, you would put your credentials and you would enter all this stuff. And this line of code just says, okay, you can use these variables in another file of code. So if we go in Twilio over here, I import the credentials. So I say over here, the variable credentials is equal to require credentials.js. So this just says, okay, import all those credentials that were in that file. And then I basically reassign the variables by saying, okay, the ID is equal to credentials.account ID, auth token is equal to credentials auth token, whatever. This is just a way for me to hide my credentials in another file. And in real life, you would do this. Because let's say you would have a public repository on GitHub, you would want to put all your code on GitHub, but you don't want to put your credentials. So you would say, okay, put all this code on, why is ./credentials a string? Oh, this is just how this specific function works. So require takes a string as an argument, and the argument is what's the name of the file, basically. That's just how it works, because it's a path. I know it's a path to what you're trying to require, basically. Anyways, so this. Okay, so now there's some code that, once again, I told you guys there's packages and APIs. This code, const client require Twilio account SID auth token. If any of you have done object-oriented programming, you'll see over here that basically what I'm doing is I'm creating a new instance of an object, of a class, client, which is an object that has these 2 parameters inside. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's okay. Basically, I'm just doing some Twilio code that it asks me to do for JavaScript. Okay, you can ignore this. Well, you need to put it, but my point is you don't need to understand it right away. Now look at this. I made an object. We saw objects in the other file. And what it does, what these objects do is they have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And all of these letters, numbers map to a certain day of the week. And you'll understand why very soon. Then I have a function over here called send text message, okay? This code I did not write. Like it's in the get started that I showed you guys over here for the documentation over here. I'll just remove this. You guys are already remixing it. What was I going to say? Yeah. So this code, client messages, was already written by Twilio in their quick start guide, okay, in their documentation. And in code and in developing, quick starts, documentation is everything. You'll Google stuff, you'll always find information, how to get started, how to do this, how to do that. And it's okay that you're using code as long as you understand it at a certain extent. But it's okay if you don't understand it right now. Some of you are just starting, and that's perfect. Like that's exactly how we learn. So anyways, this function, what it does is it takes a parameter, day of week, so a day of the week, and then it's going to send a text message. So out of all this code, the only important part for you guys to understand is that this part sends the actual text. Then when there is success, it's going to console log the message ID and console log message successfully sent. That's all it's going to do. And .catch is if there's an error, it'll catch the error. But that's more advanced stuff. And these are .then and .catch means this thing uses promises, and this is higher level JavaScript stuff. But the important part is here. Client.messages.create takes in one argument. What is that argument? It is an object. So you guys see we can start mixing and matching stuff. It's okay if you're kind of confused at the way this is set up in the formatting and stuff. But as you can see, you have the from number, which is the number that you're sending it from. And then you have the to number. So this is the number you're sending the text to. And the important part here is body. And so the only little bit of logic that I put, and I'll show you guys later, it's going to send a text that says, hello world, what a nice, and then day of week, and then the exclamation mark. Now, I never showed this in variables, but you can take strings and add them to other strings. So day of week, you guys are going to see, we're going to pass a string as a parameter. And if you add two strings together, it's as if you were adding them. So let's say, for example, I do very quickly, let hello equals hello. And then I do let world equals world. Let hello world, whoops. And then I make this equal to hello plus world. It's going to stick hello and world together. So this will be equal to hello world. Okay, you guys understand? It's just going to stick both strings together. That's all it does. When you plus two strings together, it just sticks them together. So if I would want to have a little space in there, then I can do hello plus, and then put a space right here, and then, whoops, and then plus the other word. Where's my plus? There we go. So if I do this, then we have the hello world with a space in between. Everyone's following? I'm just sticking strings together, and you could do that with a plus. So over here, I do hello world, what a nice, and then plus day of the week, and then exclamation mark. Okay, perfect. So over here in JavaScript, there are obviously pre-made functions by JavaScript for you to work with numerous things. Perfect example, we keep on working with console.log, but who wrote this code? This is pre-built code from JavaScript for you to actually put stuff in the console. And as you can see, console.log is a function that I'm calling, and I'm always putting my own parameters. But it's somewhere in the code, that function was written by some developer. So it's there somewhere. Now, what is the logic I'm doing over here? Day of week is equal to new date. All this does is it generates a number, and that's a Unix timestamp of how many seconds have passed since January 1st, 1970. No, you don't need to understand that at all. It's just a way that developers and computers use to keep track of time. Okay, it's just, imagine new date just generates the exact time right now when this line of code is executed. All right, now we take day of week, and now we don't want it to be equal to this weird number anymore. We want it to be equal to a a day of the week, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So if I do day of week dot get day, JavaScript will actually tell me what day of the week it is. But it won't say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's going to return me a number. So most of the work you do as a developer, you're going to go on the internet and you're going to find answers to things. And so look, date.prototype.getDay, here's the documentation for JavaScript. And it says the getDay function, which I just called on a date object, returns the day of the week for the specified date according to local time, where 0 represents Sunday. For the rest of the month, so it returns a number between 0 and 6 corresponding to the day of the week for the given date according to local time. 0 for Sunday, 1 for Monday, 2 for Tuesday. So now if we go back here, you guys are going to understand why I did this here. 0 for Sunday, 1 for Monday, 2 for, oh my lord, 2 for Tuesday, 3 for Wednesday. So over here, I basically mapped what the numbers meant in human terms. So over here, day of week is doing day of week dot get day. So day of week right now is equal to a certain number. And that number is, we're Wednesday today, so it should be 4, right? I think. 0, 1, 2, 3. Should be 3. Yeah, that's totally what I said. So it should be 3. So day of week is now equal to 3. All right? Now, but I don't want 3. I don't want my text to say, hello world, what a beautiful 3 day today. This makes no sense to me as a human. So then if I go down here, I want it to be an actual readable string by a human. So day of week, I will now make it be, I will change this variable to weekday, day of week. But we know day of week right now is a number. So as we said before, remember when we were using objects, because weekday over here is an object, with the first word, it's like a dictionary. So now our word, if you will, like put that kind of, it's not really a word, but our word 3 is going to map to Wednesday. So if day of week is 3, weekday, square brackets 3 will give me Wednesday. If it were 2, it would give me Tuesday. If it were 1, it would give me Monday. And so we have that stored in this variable over here. So that's very nice. I'm just going to put this in a comment. And now if we run this code, let's confirm that. Oh, whoops. We want to run a different code now, by the way. So we kept on running node basics.js. We're going to run node twilio.js because that's the file that we're in right now. So if we run this, we have 5 and Friday. What the hell is going on? Okay. I look a little stupid right now, but that's because these servers are probably somewhere else. Oh, as you can see. Okay, first of all, we're Thursday today, so it should have been 4. Sorry, I thought it was Wednesday today. So it should have been 4 beforehand. But look at this server. It says it's midnight 54, so it actually thinks it's Friday. Because literally, as I was saying, this website, glitch.com, uses a server that's probably in I don't know where in the world, and the time on that JavaScript, that machine is actually Friday. So yeah, that's going to be a little off. Sorry about that, because they have a couple of hours off, because for them it's midnight 54. So I don't know if you guys follow what I'm saying, but basically that computer is somewhere else in the world where the time is different. So when I run this code, for them the day is Friday. Okay, and so that's 5 Friday, so that's good. That's Europe time. Yeah, it must be some country in Europe. So there you go. And then at the end, I'm going to call the function. So that's the moment we've been waiting for. Send message with day of week. So right now, day of week is Friday, right? Because it properly converted to a number and then properly converted to the string we wanted. So now it's Friday. So now we're calling send message with Friday. So if we go back to the function over here, we're going to create a message and send it with hello world, what a nice Friday, because we changed day of week by Friday since that's what we called it with. So let me call this function. And if it works well, we should have a message successfully sent. Woohoo! So we have this unique ID for the actual message that was sent, which is fine. And it says message successfully sent. And if you guys want proof, I will give you proof. So here is the My Phone app, which I will make display my actual device. And if I go here, sent from you, yeah, because it's a trial account, but here you go. Hello world, what a nice Friday. So I actually physically received the text on my cell phone. So there you go, guys. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll gladly take any question. And basically, if I want to conclude this, I don't know if I have anything in my PowerPoint for this. Twilio Node.js. You guys can mess around with JavaScript anytime on the web. It's very easy to do. You can find a JavaScript interpreter, use the glitch that I told you, or if you download Node.js, you can run it on your own computer. The API that I used is Twilio. There's the link in a comment in the glitch.com that I sent you guys. If you guys want to get your own authentication tokens and stuff for the API, if you guys want to run it and send yourselves a text. Proud of you guys. You guys all know some basic JavaScript now and have used a small API. And that's how things are built, guys. Just give yourselves a goal. Give yourselves like an idea that you want to finish, and you'll learn everything on the way to that idea. Let's say you want to build an app that sends text every day of the week that just tells you to have a wonderful morning. You basically have everything down for that. And yeah, there you go. I highly encourage all of you to go to hackathons if you want to learn how to code. It is, according to me, the best way to learn. I love hackathons. Workshops like this are also the best way to learn. And keep on hacking, keep on learning, and stay safe during these corona times.